Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young, and we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all, let's get into it. Hey, people, we are back on the airwaves at it again.
Yes. So, you were over here trying to make sure your mic was right,
Look, I just want to make sure that the people can hear me. So
I know, but see what you were insinuating was that I'm loud and I'm too loud. How about that?
Look, if you're out there listening, you make the determination for yourself. I just want to make sure that the people can hear us clearly.
I just project easily. And that's you know what? Let me stay in my ministry, okay? Loud and in charge and clear and to the point. That's all I'm saying.
People, we just want to make sure we give you something good to work with. And this is how we get started.
Yes. So
this is going to be I'm going to use your words. This is going to be an exciting topic today.
So tell us, what's up? How did we come to this topic today?
I think this is a topic that everybody has actually considered or contemplated or at some point gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just interesting because, is money really the answer to everything?
Lord have mercy. Mm-hmm.
And I just saying that, I know some of you listening like, yeah.
If I had more money, if only I had more money, I could do A, B, and C and all would be good.
Right. And I think that is typically everybody's answer is that, yeah, money can fix this or money can fix that or money can do this. Now, look. Don't mistake me. I'm going to take all the money that I can get. Anybody want to pay me, I'm going to cash the checks. But I have always felt like money only amplifies more of who you are.
Yeah.
And if you are a poor manager of a little bit of money, when you get a lot of money, it's not going to make you a good manager of a lot of money.
Right.
So you have to, build skills and habits when it comes to money management, and that money allows you to do things in life, to have access to experiences and to be a blessing to people.
Mm-hmm.
But is it everything?
So that's where we came to questioning some stuff, because you had a conversation with someone considering another job, and the annual salary was thrown out there, and it's like there was this moment when you said, man, I wonder if I would be willing to do a job that, I that would make me unhappy or that I just didn't like for the money, because the money was so enticing. What you thought you could do with the money was just glorious and in this new space. And it just made me pause. And I know I will readily admit that I am a glass half full. The pot of gold is at the end of the rainbow. The rose-colored glasses kind of person. And I always really try and see the bright side. And sometimes, that can be a ditch on a side as well. Like it's almost unrealistic to think that, people will take, that, like, why would someone take a job that they would be just happy? You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And I know that there are people who would, but I just can't imagine that. Like, it just doesn't come into my purview. Like, I'm not, in my mind, I'm like, no money is worth that. And a lot of people don't feel that way.
I find, I'm glad that we are able to do this together, because though we agree on a lot of stuff, I think we see things differently as well.
So how do you see it, babe?
I think people get up and go to work every morning to jobs they don't like.
Now, that's real.
And because they get up and they go to work for jobs that they don't like, they're already making a choice to do exactly what we're talking about.
And I appreciate that perspective, because you're right. Like, I am in a different place where I'm self-employed and I get a chance to make choices on, one, who I work with and how I work and where I work. So I do have autonomy over those things, and I've created that. And I've also given up dollars to make that a true statement. But not that I don't make money, because I definitely do, but just that I actually have more control than someone who works a 9 to 5 for corporate. Like it's a different kind of flexibility that I get to enjoy that others may not. And for the most part, I'm happy. There are lots of things about the work I do that I don't like, or I get bogged down in, or I have my bad days just like everybody
And
else.
I think that's applicable to any job, career, profession, or even business, because some people who own businesses or are self-employed, what they've done is some people haven't necessarily created a business, they created a job.
Absolutely.
And then those that have created businesses that have people that employ them, that they employ, they've created a business, but it brings other, issues with it, people management and, the fear of having to deliver on payroll and anxieties around that. All that stuff is real. But I think when you say, would people take a job that they're unhappy for the money, I think there's two things. One, I know a ton of people and there are people listening to this podcast right now like, man, this stupid job of mine. Tomorrow is Sunday, and Sunday night people started to get anxiety about, I got to get up and go to this job on Monday, because they have bills, they have, requirements on their life. They have, expectations. They have to, I got to feed my family and, food, clothing, shelter, transportation. They need to provide those things, and they may not be happy with the job that they have.
So what I hear you saying is that people can settle for the job they have and they're already unhappy. So they've made that choice to stay versus going somewhere else where they potentially could be happier or pursue, a different career path where their, sense of satisfaction is greater.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think sometimes people misunderstand, like, well, if I go to get a job that pays more, I'm going to be happier. Like, look, as I've learned in my career, the higher you go, on the pyramid, the higher you go, the more narrow it gets at the top and the wider it gets at the bottom. And so there's less room at the top to make mistakes, and there's a lot more responsibility that's required of you. So these jobs where people are highly compensated, it's like there's a lot of responsibility that comes with those jobs. And I know we've kind of veered from what our original, kind of question is like, I was talking to a friend and we were talking about staying in one job versus taking something that was different, that had less stress. It was not impacting their life. And I think about that like, man, how far do you want to excel? Because with that comes responsibility.
So I got to ask you this question. Have you ever had a job that you hated?
Have I ever had a job that I hated? Yes.
Ooh, tell me more.
I mean, I don't know if it was so much.
Do I know what this job is? Have I been in the picture when you had this job?
Oh, yeah. Since we've been married, I've had a couple jobs. I was like, man, this job sucks. But,
Is it possible for you to say what it was without mentioning the name of the company?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. Like, I remember there was a time when, early on when I was in sales and my sales career, I had one job. I was an IT recruiter, and, I enjoyed that. And I was learning like what sales was about. And I knew that, being inside on the phone is not what I wanted to do, because I was mainly in my office on the phone making calls. But I would go out and visit, customers and make pitches for, IT recruiting services and things like that. So I knew I liked kind of the hybrid, being in the office, but have the ability to get out. And I took another job that it was similar to that. And it was even more of a hybrid where I would work with, small businesses and home offices, self-employed people to help them establish, telecommunication services that they needed.
Mm-hmm.
And that department got eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
And I was folded into a call center job. I was like, oh no, this is not what I signed up for.
Exactly.
And that call center job, look, I'm not hating on call center people that work. Look, you can make some decent money doing that, but it wasn't for me. Because being tethered to the phone and on an auto dialer where you hang up and another call rolls in, and you're supposed to you're expected to make, to resolve calls in a certain amount of time. I was like, oh no, this is not where Chris Young needs to be.
Yeah.
And I just did not enjoy sitting at a desk being tethered to a phone and a computer. That just wasn't that
Mm.
wasn't my jam.
So I just had an aha moment as you were saying that like we have our oldest who is not 100%, you know, with her job. She is a great job. She makes good money. And you know, she actually likes the company. But the function, the work on a daily basis, you know, is challenging for her. Not hard necessarily, but the learning curve, she's new to the workforce, plus she's much more of a creative. And I realized that she is staying there essentially for the money.
right.
And that's a big, for me, that's an aha, because I think you're right. Like when you mentioned that there's a lot of people who are in jobs and they stay because of the money. Not necessarily they took the job because the money was amazing, but they stay because the money's great. Versus going to look for something else. And I think some of that is the growing pains, because the jobs that you mentioned were growing pains of first getting out of college and having those first work experiences and sort of figuring out your
Yes.
purpose and where you would love to land in life and what you really want to do. And it was sort of that figuring it out period. And I think definitely that's what our daughter is going through. But I do agree, like now that I'm thinking about it more, I appreciate that perspective that there's a lot of people out there who could be unhappy and they're staying for the money. So that might be more of the population of people who are unhappy, they stay for it versus they go take a job
Now
in which they already know.
here's what I'm gonna add to that. I think it's okay to spend a time or a season doing that, because even with, our daughter, I said, look, I didn't have jobs that I was really happy with for my first 7 years of my career. I wasn't completely happy or resolved, and it wasn't until I got where I wanted to be that I was like, oh yeah, this is the place. So it was kind of almost like proving time and proving ground. So I appreciate how you put it in context that it's kind of early career where you may make some of those sacrifices. And even our daughter, she has realized that, hey, hold on, I like the lifestyle that I have.
Yes.
And so maybe I might have to sacrifice a little bit. And I told her, I said, look, you need to be building towards something else. Don't be satisfied just where you're at. Start building, creating a network, doing what you need to do to get to the place where you're going to enjoy what you do. But I think that there's a flip side to that also, because let's fast forward. Once you've gone through that initial, out of college, entering the workforce, proving period, I think there are people who reach like, director and VP and, those levels where the responsibility becomes pretty tremendous, or, just the job changes and the demands change. And though at that point you may be highly compensated, but it's like, are you happy?
Mm-hmm.
Is the stress or the pressure or whatever adjective you want to use, is it worth the money?
Yeah, that's so good. And I have actually had clients who have stayed in careers or positions as they're getting out of debt. They've made the determination that this isn't exactly where I want to be, but the money is good and it's going to give me and afford me the opportunity to pay off debt or to get to a different place financially, and then we can make a different choice. And here's what's interesting is my first career job, if you will, my first corporate job, I couldn't leave it. I couldn't leave it when we were getting out of debt. I didn't hate the job at all. That wasn't the thing. It was the lifestyle that was a challenge for me as a new mom. And so there were lots of tug of war with my attention at work and at home. And it was stressful being in debt and trying to figure out, okay, I got to, put more money on it. I can't leave if I wanted to, and I didn't necessarily want to be an at-home mom, but I couldn't leave if I wanted to because of the debt. And so it was like, okay, stay here for this season until this season itself is up. And that's a choice that we make. It is definitely a choice that we make. And I feel like it's interesting because the further you get away from those experiences, it's super easy to lose that focus and perspective. Because today I'm like, I would never take a job that I hated, right? But now I'm looking back like I stayed in a job and I wasn't, my life wasn't super happy at the time.
Right. I'm glad you maintain that perspective because the further you get away from something, people start to forget, like you had your comeuppings, and it's like, don't forget where you came from when you get to the land of lush and green. It's like, well, I would never do that. It's like, well, you did it for, 8-9 years, so don't say what you would never do.
Right.
And I think the big thing is, as people are listening to this, the big thing that I want you to take from it is, look, if you get out of debt and you create, margin for yourself, you start, saving, you open up options.
Yeah.
Because you may sit in a job today that doesn't bring you the satisfaction, or you're like, man, the money is too good to walk away. But I've seen people who were in senior level leadership roles, and they decided, you know what, for my family, for my well-being, I'm going to take a step back. And they've taken a step down, or in some cases taken, 2 steps down to still have a good income, a good living, but the peace of mind is what they needed to focus on. And I think when you've been intentional about eliminating debt, paying off your home, having freedom on that, you can make those choices and not be driven solely by the dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's seasons in life where you have to make hard choices. You have to make hard decisions. Because I even think about when I was in grad school, I was working full time. I had a wife and little kids, and that was the toughest 18 months of my life.
Who you telling? Okay, because I was there with you, baby.
Right. And so it's one of those things where I made a decision that I was willing to sacrifice in that short period of time because I saw the benefit to me on the other side. And it's funny to think back, man, that was so long ago now. Like, geez, this seems like it was yesterday. Don't say it. Don't say it. Watch yourself now.
You getting up there. But anyway, so let me ask you this. Do you feel like money makes the world go round?
And round and round and round. I think money is at the heart and the center of a lot of decisions that we make, because we're thinking about, like, how is this going to help me, or how can I do what I want to do, and and so it's one of those things where people put it in all the decisions that they make. If you're going to buy something, if you're going to invest in something, if you're going to buy a new car, and I think some people are more methodical about it, like us, and think it all the way through. And then you make decisions based on a lot of different factors. And some people are just impulsive and they're not focused on eliminating debt or being intentional. And then that the money can dictate the rat race that they're in. And so when you talk about round and round, if you're not intentional about making decisions, you get stuck in this rat race. And then money does make you go round and round because you're chasing money to try and resolve your situation, or like, well, a little bit more money is going to help me get out of debt, but you don't change your habits.
Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing right there.
Right. And then, or if I get this other job, it's going to free me up in this, but you're not a good steward of your time and you're not developing your skills, so you can't keep that job. So then money is always driving you. But when you make decisions and you're intentional and you have a plan in place, it can help not so much drive you, it can help frame some of the decisions that you make. But what about you? I mean, when you think about it, does money make the world go round? What's your perspective?
I think money touches everything. I feel like it is, for me, a different viewpoint. The budget, I'm so literal. I'm so practical. I always go back to the budget. I always go back to, like, literally what is on pen and paper. But when you look at it, it is difficult to simply live. We don't even have to talk about thriving. We can talk about surviving. It does take money. It touches literally everything. So when you look at it, it's like, all right, the insurance, food on the table, a roof over your head, clothes on your back, gas on your car.
Childcare.
Literally all of the things. money touches everything. And if you and you feel it, I really think that we think money makes the world go round because the more you have, the more of the world you can, participate in, for instance. But I think like it literally touches everything. So we can't get away from it. We can't say, "Oh, I just wish," because I've heard this. I've heard this from our, children. I just wish, that things didn't cost money. I wish that we could get away from this system. I'm like, Lord have mercy.
We're going back to the barter system.
Oh my gosh. And the thing is, money essentially does touch all the things in our life, and you feel it. You feel it in both ways. You feel it when you don't have a lot of it. You're like, dang, I wish I had more. And you feel it when you have a lot, and you like, some of these people are also like, dang, I wish I had more. But it's this whole consumption, like we I think place so much emphasis on it that we don't realize its purpose. It's a tool. I see money as a whole complete tool. If we're able to utilize it for good, fantastic. If we're not utilizing it for good, it does whatever you want it to do. You tell it what to do. And so I think we can lose sight of the fact that, it is within our power and control when what we have in our hands is in our power and control to do something with it. And that's positive or negative, but it does literally touch everything.
Yeah, I was listening to you and you were saying how money touches everything, and our kids were thinking like, let's go back to the barter system. And I think that money it's all about commerce. And commerce to me is exchanges. And you can go back ages, years or centuries ago, and they may not have had physical money, but the person who had 1,000 goats was richer than the person who had a single goat.
Absolutely.
Or whatever, livestock. And it was whatever you're exchanging for something else. It's commerce. And so we're exchanging today, we exchange time with an employer for compensation.
Mm-hmm.
And then we take that compensation and we exchange that with retailers or service providers for what it is they're providing to us.
Yeah.
And those who have more kind of consume more. But the whole thing is, at the center of this, we're becoming more and more aware of mental health and well-being. And I think now is a time and a day and age when people are thinking more about that than we ever have in the past. And I think that's what prompted some of the conversation was, well, dang, I can make a lot of money in this role or in this business, but it's costing me this or it's costing me that. And there's a principle called loss aversion.
Oh Lord, he about to go get real academic
but loss
here.
Loss aversion is the fear of losing out on something more so than what you can gain.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I think people think about, well, man, if I don't do this and I don't grow or increase my income, it won't allow me to do this. Whereas if you were to get out of debt or sacrifice right now, which is a short-term sacrifice or loss, the rewards are so much bigger on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people can't contextually see that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hope people start to just open their eyes and say, you know what is the life that I want to live? And when you think about that, say, okay, if this is the life that I want to live, what is it going to take in order to get to that? Because people have these grandiose, visions, but there's no plan, there's no strategy, there's no budget, and you got to have the commitment to do those things in order to accomplish some of those plans. And that's why if I go back to it, I might be willing to do a job that I was not completely happy with if I was yielding, a high salary, high returns, high income for a period of time.
And that's the thing. So I think this is the key at this moment in life for us, is that you don't have to go off and take a job.
Right.
I think we are at a place where there isn't the need to drastically increase your income at the risk of being unhappy
Sacrificing my happiness.
and bringing that crap home, because this where a sister a cuss. You know what I'm saying? Because you gonna bring that crap home, okay?
Hold on now.
And then
keep your shirt on. Keep your shirt on. This is less about me and more for the people.
No, but no, the reality is that you don't walk the career by yourself. And so there are people who are affected by the unhappiness or by the dissatisfaction or by the lack of purpose when you're in a job that isn't satisfying. And the other thing is people medicate with the extra dollars, right? And so there is this idea that you can make more money and then you spend more money because you are unhappy. You will do things that give you a short-term satisfaction, versus, really making sure that you're doing what you need to with the dollars that are extra, right? For that season. And so a lot of people will do, will pacify themselves with things or experiences or what have you because of what the 9 to 5 is bringing them in terms of stress. And that is of concern. And again, I do think that it is a privilege to sit in that position where you don't have to make a choice of a career or a job. Because I did have a client recently. I actually did, who was in a job she literally hated. She just, and if it were me, I probably wouldn't like that job either. But she literally hated it. And I said, so is this something you can do for 3 months while in this particular season? And she had a hard time thinking beyond this week of work.
Was she making a lot of money in that job?
She was making enough, not a lot, no, but enough to take care of what she needed to do and get to another level.
So it wasn't a position where she could walk away from because she felt like what she was getting was sufficient and significant that
she hadn't found another thing yet
that could displace that.
Exactly. And the word was hatred, yes, for the job. And but when I even extended it, she couldn't even wrap her mind around being in the job for 3 months, even when I extended it and said, okay, so here's what could happen in 3 months. And that was hard for her. And I can imagine that it would be challenging. And she took the job knowing she was going to hate it. So let's be clear. She took it knowing she was going to hate it and knowing that it was going to be enough to satisfy her financial need in the moment. And there are lots of reasons behind why people take jobs, but I can't imagine the type of person that you are. Just in our conversation, how unhappy she was and her discontent was so visible. And you bring that to your family, you bring that to your friends, you become this sarcastic, disgruntled person. And how long can you do that? Be that human,
right.
So I would just challenge what people are actually doing it for. Is it, and that's the real key. Is it worth it?
So this is what's interesting. You said it. Sometimes people are sitting in a seat of privilege because they have choices and options to do those things.
Right.
Not all people have choices and options to do that. Mm-hmm. Even though I believe everybody has a free will and they have some level of choice. Mm-hmm. I look at the UPS guy and FedEx drivers, they're making 6 figures and they're delivering packages. I did it in college and it's not, it's a good job.
Oh yeah. When I met you and you was doing that job, I was like, oh, okay, he got a real job.
Exactly. And so there are choices
with benefits and such
options. Not everybody, those are sometimes hard jobs to get, but not everybody can get them, but there are options. We're from Detroit. A lot of people work for.
Did you say we?
Let it roll. I'm letting it roll today. You're Detroit adjacent, but you brought it up. So
I'm just really glad that you said that. That's all I'm saying.
I'm trying to make a greater point. You're making me digress. But a lot of people work for the automakers, and those are assembly line positions. They're making 6 figures doing that. And that may not be what you want to do because, I hear a lot of things about things that go on in the plants. But there are options. And I think someone who is committed to trying to figure it out, trying to make their way, will explore all of their options. But when you talk about that experience and, and I think about like people that I know personally and they're making decisions, I think you have to have a plan in place. And you have to be willing to know how much you're willing to accept and what you're willing to accept and not let the compensation be the only thing that drives you. But if you think about it, when you grow up poor, like I grew up and then you get an opportunity to, have careers and jobs that are high paying, high compensating jobs. It's like, well, hold on. I, for years, went without, or I had to sacrifice, or there was things that we didn't have access to. And once you access that, you don't want to go back. And I think sometimes it's all about the choices that people and decisions that people are making. But I think along the way, from early, mid, late career, you should always be putting yourself in positions to, make different decisions. Because I've said it to you, it's like when you get out of debt, you don't have any consumer debt, you don't have car notes or mortgages, and you've saved and you've been diligent, and you're at work and something goes down and you don't like it, and you just start packing your desk up. And people are like, what are you doing? You're like, no payments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any payments. I'm out of here. I don't have to deal with this.
That's the best feeling, to know that is at your disposal to do when things go awry and you are in a position where you can just say, forget it. I ain't got to take this mess.
Right. And that's what I think people should be working towards. And so let's get into this, make it worth it. So what would you say is the one thing that you could leave people with today to make it worth it as they're considering, is money everything, and does it make the world go around?
Well, one thing that I'll say is that this is literally, it comes from a Bible verse, like money is the answer to everything. That is literally scriptural. And I think it's hilarious that, like, man, it's complicated. I will say it's complicated. And the one thing that I will say that people ought to do is just ask themselves in the moment, is it worth it? What is it that you're trying to do and accomplish? You want to take this. I don't know that more money is definitely not the answer to everything. Let's put it that way. I think that would be the context. More money is not necessarily the answer to everything, but when you're trying to decide if an opportunity, a shift, a change for more money comes, like, is it worth it is the question, and really think about why you're doing it.
That's good. That's good, because we've all seen those shows about the lottery winners. They won the lottery and they got, millions and millions of dollars. And next thing you know, they're on the show, the lottery, and I became broke.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so you went from, working your 9 to 5 and, reasonable, or, whatever your level or station of life was at that point, to multimillionaire, access to everything, ability to do anything, and you went broke.
Yep. Like it changed your life. It sure did. It sure did. So how would you make it worth it?
So I'm going to build off of that. Like, you got to have a plan, and we talk about a budget, but I think a budget is just part of the plan. And no matter where you're at today, if you're listening to this, decide, I'm going to build off is it worth it? Decide what you want. If you're in debt, say, okay, I want to be out of debt. In order to get out of debt, the plan says I need to spend this amount of time eliminating that debt. And I need to save, or I need to do this, but have a plan. So even if you're in a job that you're not 100% happy with, know what that time frame looks like that you would be there, and factor into your plan trying to better the position, better your station in life. But I guess the biggest thing, it just keeps coming back to myself, have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have a plan, then you're planning to fail.
And I would even say have a plan for your next level so you don't have to stay stuck. How about that? That's the key right there. So this was good. I had a couple of aha moments of my own. This was awesome. Thank you for facilitating that, husband.
Yeah, I enjoyed this conversation, and I hope the people who are listening take it in, 2024 is our year.
That's what's
And
up.
so make 2024 your year. And until next time,
We're out.
thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on forbetterandworth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.